Welcome to the PopOwt Podcast. This is your boy DJ Simo alongside Waski Rose Gold. Today, we have a very special podcast episode for you all. We all know everyone out there, partakes in the devil's lettuce a little bit, but we want to take that connotation away. So today, we are Poddin Hemp. All right. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Lewaski take over. Go ahead, Rose Gold.
Man, today, it's your boy Waski Rose Gold, PopOwt Podcast. We are glad to introduce our special guest today, Dr. Professor J. Noller, the hemp guru himself. He's the department head for the Global Hemp Innovation Center, where I work at now under Oregon State. And he's provided me with a great opportunity to take Imperial growth to the next level. Man, Dr. Noller has such a long rap sheet with hemp and just soil science, hemp art. I mean, it's just one of the most amazing guys I have met, and I'm glad to be working under him and getting instruction, guidance, and as well as to learn from him. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce everybody to Mr. J. Noller.
All right. I'm so glad to be here. This is the best time of my whole day, if not whole week. So this is awesome. It's great. And yeah.
Right. So Dr. Noller, give us a little background about your education, where you're from, what got you into the hemp industry and researching.
Sure. I'm originally from East LA, and so went to school there, my undergrad and my master's degree, and those were both in earth sciences, geology. And been in a career that's spanned that, going on to studies with I worked for the U.S. Geological Survey for a while up in Menlo Park, Bay Area. Went to grad school, PhD at University of Colorado, Boulder. They call it CU, and that was to work down in mapped the coast of South America, the soils. It was kind of archaeology. That was kind of fun. Yeah, so that's when I really got interested in like agriculture, and like we as humans been doing it for a long time. And so went and started up a company in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then became professor at Vanderbilt University. This is a long time ago. And at the same time, I started doing research over in Eastern Mediterranean, looking at how do people figure out how to grow their food, put seeds in the ground, that type of thing. That continued on for, like more than 20 years. Just over there, Italy, Turkey, Greece.
I know that scenery was beautiful.
Syria, just all around, trying to figure out. And I was eventually got to Oregon State University and their College of Ag Sciences. It's 20 years ago now. Became department head of crop and soil science about 6 so years ago, and at the same time that I moved into that position, which is managing a lot of different crops, the Farm Bill was coming up to pass, and that was 2 of our senators in Oregon were responsible to get that language set up. And so I was like, okay, you're in charge of crops. Hemp is a crop.
Yes.
do it. Or here's the opportunity, really. And so that's what I did. Started up, got DEA registration, and just been kind of playing around since that. More than a year ago, just like, this is full time.
Right.
Got to do this. Started up this hemp institute. It's called Global Hemp Innovation Center. And for 5 years, I've been working, since it was really tough in the US to get seeds and that sort of thing. I just thought, I'm just going to go back over to Europe. I know how to do that, and find people who grow hemp. And I did. And we started doing some experiments together over in Eastern Europe. And then not long after that, somebody said, hey, China's been doing this for a long time. Why don't you learn about it? So I went over there, and they really liked what I was doing. And so like last year, I think I flew around the world 5 times. I was in China just about every month. I was in Europe every other month, and all over the US. And so now we have research projects in like 20 countries. And it's
global.
So yeah, it's global. Yeah, that's why it's called global. So there we are. Yeah.
Thank you for giving us that little backdrop on the Global Hemp Innovation Research Center. I know when Lewaski was telling me about it, I said, wait. We already have schools. they already have schools to grow hemp. And Waski, let's say if he told me on Monday that he had this in mind, Lewaski was enrolled, had his position, his internship set up by Thursday. I was like, okay, all right. And I know Lewaski, little backstory, about a year ago, back in January 23rd of 2019, I know the date specifically, Lewaski sat at my table in my apartment, and he was just writing in his book, talking about how he wanted to get a grow company started, and he wanted to learn more about it. And back then, I was like, yeah, hey, might as well get ahead of it. And we sat there. I think we knew it would go somewhere, but I don't think that either one of us, me or Lewaski, thought that it would move as fast as it has for him in under a year. Well, really under a year, because if it wasn't for COVID, boom. But so that's really good. So we'll get into some questions. I want to get to some questions for you.
Sure.
So again, I pulled these off our Instagram page. We did a poll, and one of the questions, the first question, we'll start with this one. What are the benefits and or risk, if any, of long-term use of marijuana?
Oh my goodness. Well, so let's see it from a university standpoint.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things that I've struggled for a long time was being able to get permission to work with marijuana.
Right.
But hemp was like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead, go do that. But if you look at my DEA registration, like from 2015, 16, 17, it all says marijuana. And the reason why is because it's the same plant. It's cannabis sativa, linea. People will talk about indica or ruderalis, and that's kind of street talk. Scientifically, it's genetically, it's one species. It does have different chemotypes. It has THC in it, it has CBD, G, and then probably theoretically a few thousand of those cannabinoids. And so, so when we talk about long-term use, I don't think we know enough, and it depends on which chemotype and then how you're using it, right? So if one's smoking it here in Oregon, smokable hemp is a big thing. It was in Texas up until Wednesday when they shut it down. And so you have different political views on it. And vaping and all that type of thing. And I think if we look at the studies, it depends on how you're administering it. Is it going through your stomach, through your bloodstream, it's under your tongue? I don't think we know enough, but I think what we do know is that nobody really died of it for millennia before, and we haven't seen anybody die from it since. So it seems like I think you can infer it's probably going to be safe. And if anything, probably for those who are in their teen years, the brain is kind of reorganizing itself. It's probably not helpful because the brain needs to, it's quite plastic, which is important for human development. So probably once well out of their teens, then it's like, well, you're an adult. So we'll see. Right?
Right. Thank you for that. And that's what I think a lot of people, they try to use, marijuana, causing death, and it's like it's not really the marijuana in and of itself that's causing the problems. Of course, if your motor controls are being, what's the word I'm looking for? If you're being, you can't react fast enough. Of course, you shouldn't be driving a car. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that you died from smoking marijuana or using hemp. And I think that's a very common misconception amongst people who are detractors of the plant. Well, thank you for that. And like you said with the millennia before us, medically now we're better off than we ever have been in history. So if they could take it millennia ago, it's pretty sure we could take it now. So thank you for that. Okay. So I know you said how you administer it. We have a question. What's the healthiest way to get THC in your system and still feel the euphoric effects? So what's the best way? Some people smoke blunts, or they smoke doobies in the papers, hit bong rips, edibles. In your opinion and through your research, what have you seen to be the quote unquote safest way?
Yeah, so when you talk about THC, that's going to be on the marijuana side, not hemp. And of course, hemp has been used as a street term for something that's maybe has higher THC in it. But our research, we can't touch it. It's outside our bounds. Just the University of Mississippi and the THC is pretty low compared to what one could get at a dispensary here in Oregon or Washington, California, these Pacific states, other states like Massachusetts where it's allowed. And so again, when you're looking at a cannabinoid and how it goes into the body, it depends on to what end, what purpose, right? So if you're looking at impacting the endocannabinoid system, and I know that's it's almost like a nursery rhyme in length, but it's part of the human body, like we think almost all animals so have an endocannabinoid system. So you're going like, what does that mean? Well, it means it's your body, just the virtue of your talking to me today, both of you and me, is since we were, in utero, in mom, we've been producing our own cannabinoids in our body our whole lives. Right? But it's not THC. Tetrahydrocannabinol is one of many, many forms. They're found in this plant. We can find it in other plants. Not too many though. So it interacts with the receptor on our central nervous system. You probably heard the term homeostasis.
Yes.
It's kind of like, so, what's your temperature? Every day you go and check in. It's like, 97.8 every day. It's that. Boop, boop, boop. Your endocannabinoid system targets that and dials it in. So every day you're sitting there. Something happens to you, it dials up, dials down. So you think of it, I like to call it our inner maestro. It's like a conductor sitting up there in front telling you do this. Or another way is it's the drummer. They just keep the beat. It's going all the time. That's it. And your drum machine, and that's the rhythm of your life. So there's CB1, CB2 receptors. These are on cells within the body, so they're just sitting there like port doors. And something comes randomly, bumps into it, and goes, "Whoa, okay." And it gets a signal, and it goes, "Oh, okay," because the body doesn't sit there like. Well, there is some electrical impulses, but when you get like you stub your toe, okay, that signal that comes up through your central nervous system, everybody says, oh, it's like a bolt of electricity. It's not the truth. It's your endocannabinoid system. It's your own internal cannabis-like molecules that are communicating. Do you understand? So when somebody takes THC and if it goes in, somehow gets to your central nervous system, so like, where's your nerve? So you can, well, there's the brain. You have your spinal column, then you have all the nerves all over the place. So you'll see people say, well, I put it in this place in my body and stuff like that. And all they're telling you is that I'm trying to get it into my nervous system.
Okay.
So it's just a plumbing system, So you have other sorts of narcotics or drugs that people put into their other circulatory systems. You have your lymphatic system, you have your circulatory venous flow and arterial flow. And then you have your nerves, and your nerves are sitting there, and that signal, it can only go across the bridge if your endocannabinoid system is up to snuff. It isn't, it's not happening. So so how do you get whatever substitute from a plant outside? It's going to either be interactive with that, or it's going to be interactive with other cells in your body. So how's that for a long answer? It's like,
it was
people going to sleep yet?
I know I learned something right then. I just learned something. So there we go. That was a great answer right there.
That was great.
That was real good, right? Now, Lewinsky, now I see why you always coming back and telling me different things, and you put me on game on different things. I see you literally learning something every time you talk to somebody. So, yeah.
This is the guru right here, man.
Boom. So, Dr. J, I want you to give us your honest thoughts on the positive negatives of hemp and the hemp research and the uses of hemp. And are there any myths that you would like to dispel about hemp research and using hemp?
Oh my goodness, don't get me started. But I think one of them is that, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be a hemp farmer. And I'm like, no, please don't say that. A myth is being a hemp farmer. What you are is you're a farmer, and hemp is one of the crops you put in the ground. So it happens to be high value, at least depending on what year one's planting. So we had a great year 2018, then everybody comes in last year. This year, not so many. And it's just about, the various products it's going to go into. So I'd say you're a farmer and you happen to grow hemp. Now, there are other people who work around that. You can be a hemp breeder, hemp salesperson, hemp store, or whatever. And then we're going to look at, so what type of hemp do you work with? And so you have the essential oil, which everybody's like kind of into these days. That's with the cannabinoids, terpenes. But there's also fiber and grain, and there's just so many things that it could substitute for. We just don't know if it's the best substitute for something. So, we'll see how that goes. I would say the other myth is that it's not marijuana. So, because by international convention set up in 1961. So, I was actually alive back in there. That's why my hair is as white as it is. And, we just rode horses around the head and invented airplanes. Anyways, so just kidding, but it was a long time ago. And so at that time they said, look, THC, we don't want that around. Tetrahydrocannabinol, Delta 9 had just been, the year before, had been recognized as like, oh, look what comes out of this plant. That's why people are acting different when they're taking it, smoking it, cooking it, because cooking decarboxylates it. It kind of converts a lot of the other cannabinoids into the more euphoric, slightly hallucinatory delta 9 THC and delta 8. They're kind of very similar. So hemp is by definition going to be that which doesn't produce that much of the THC. It's just that places like in Oregon, you had breeders who found they had duds where the plant didn't completely make THC, it made CBD and made some other cannabinoids. And then there are all sorts of effects. And so, yeah, I'd say that's that. And then also a lot of what we know about cannabinoids is from citizen science. You don't have like the mainline researchers looking at it. We've had 80 years where science can't really touch it. And during that time, we invented all sorts of things, atom bomb, all, electric stuff and blah, 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 blah. And so, so that's why it's thrilling to work with Lewaski. He's really enthusiastic. He's like, I want to do this. I said, yeah, you got to do this. So let's do it. Yeah.
That's one thing about Lewaski. Once he puts his mind to something, he's gonna be all the way in. And
yeah.
That was a good one. I know you said something that stuck out to me was CBD. Now I know CBD has started to take off and it's starting to creep into the mainstream a lot more. Even with sponsorships, they have a sponsorship with the Big Three. I've seen them on some UFC fights. With CBD, in relation to hemp, like you said, do you feel like CBD is a safe alternative for people who may not want to touch the THC? You know, that's bad, but they also want to kind of get the benefits of the plant. So what are your thoughts on CBD?
Yeah, so when you look at, remember I talked about the endocannabinoid system, and THC like really interacts with that. And that's why one feels that effect. CBD, not so much. And actually it depends on what type of CBD it is. So I liken CBD to the category of a store that you go into that's called sweets and candies. You're going, wait a second. What do you mean? So it's like sweet and candy? And I said, no, it's just like there are so many types of CBD that it's people are saying, oh, look, I got my analysis and it says CBD. And it's like, well, that analysis, that instrument can only tell you that it's on the candy aisle, but it can't tell you whether that's a sweet tart or Nestle's or a, and so, so when we look at the, say in a medicine form, medicines are, you have to know exactly what it is. You know, it's like, it's the fruity sweet tart that's in a package in that category of candy. And that's what's going to do you right. When we look at different plants, they're producing different ones. So already we have a lot of folks saying, I've got the best CBD. And I'm saying, well, so you have the best candy, but what is it candy? And they go, oh, no, CBD. I'm going, well, no, tell me exactly what is the molecule. So, and you can't just pull it off a shelf like that. It's a lot more complicated. So marketing's got way ahead of science. And so that's one of the things we're doing is trying to get people to, let's hold on.
We know in our society, marketing and media can drive people to do things without science, and it's crazy. Thank you. Thank you for giving that for differentiating the difference between the different CBDs and all of that, because I think a lot of people just think that they're taking one size fits all. You know, they use gummies or they have it, putting it in their, I don't know. I know someone said they use it to sleep, help them sleep at night with their melatonin. So it is interesting with that. So Dr. Noller, with hemp, I actually saw Lewaski doing some research, and I saw that he was looking up hempcrete, which is, for my people out there, is concrete basically made for hemp. And Lewaski was telling me how that in and of itself is a little bit stronger than concrete, gives better, I guess, benefits. With you and the Global Hemp Research Center, what uses are you guys focusing on, I'm sorry, if any, uses of hemp in and of itself? Sorry, y'all got a little tongue.
Yeah, so we have a group of faculty. It's called Digital Architecture and Construction group. And they're looking at, so they see hemp as having the fibers, so it's pretty strong. It's lightweight, not unlike rocks. Combined well with as an aggregate, both the chipped dried hemp as well as the fibers. So we see a lot of people doing that. Well, we can look at, wood chips itself going into cinder blocks, so we can kind of see that as well. But it seems that the hemp, one of its curious things is why it's been so popular, used to be very popular, and it's regaining it as like a marine rope to tie ships up to places. You could drop it into the water. It seems to get stronger. It's like, wait, how's that happen?
Right.
So it's all, I think of hemp sometimes, everything that comes out of hemp, it seems like it's opposite land. It's like where the byproduct or, the co-product, what was somebody else's waste is actually worth more than what they just produced. So it's kind of like, so it's still in that sort of interesting place. And so building with it is possible. So this group of faculty, we have this building here that where they 3D print small buildings. So it's a big building, and then inside they have this giant 3D printer, and it sits there and prints offices and buildings and all sorts of things. And so part of the stuff that's pumped in that they'll be looking at from this summer's crop is, okay, we have this hemp stock and other fibrous material. Let's mix it up and print a building out of it.
A strong building. And that,
yeah.
I feel like, the more hemp research and when the science catches up and we get more proficient at it, I could really see a lot more things being built with the hemp. You said that when they throw it in the water, tying down the ships, it got stronger. I can imagine that would be a very, very valuable building block on coastal cities or cities that get a lot of rain. Such as you're up in Oregon, you know what I mean? Very rainy places, wet places. I feel like that would be something very beneficial for that. Boom. All right. So thank you. Boom. So let's see. Got another question. Okay. If one wanted to get into the hemp and they wanted to not be a farmer, they didn't want to be a farmer that grows hemp. They wanted to actually be the distributor or the seller of hemp. How would we go about, getting the resources to open up a hemp selling business of hemp products?
Yeah. Well, it's like anything. If you have a good product and you're able to demonstrate that to a buyer that it's they're getting an improved use, novel, something new. I never thought I could actually hold a phone in my hand and put it in my pocket and I can take pictures with it. What are you talking about, right? So sometimes we just have to think of that, innovate, which is why one of the words we have for the title of the center is just innovate, because there's a lot of room for innovation. But you also have to be able to prove that this is, it may not be less expensive, it may cost more, but you're getting something that's just better quality, hence longer use out of it. Yeah, and then, so how does one, get into that? Well, one of the things is there's an incredible amount of stocks left over from the CBD production. There's all this material, and we look at it. We just started another research project here at Oregon State, where we're feeding animals it as feed, lambs actually. And we'll see how that, the FDA says, no, you can't feed hemp to animals. It's like, but we did in the US. In fact, if you were considered a farmer in the United States or in the colonies before, you had to grow hemp. Otherwise, they wouldn't classify you as a farmer. So we don't get that. And if you're running a dairy, you have to feed hemp to it because that helps it. But now all of a sudden they say, "Oh no, that could be poison." I'm like, "Wait, this it's ridiculous."
I want to blame
But
that on reefer madness.
there is that. Yes, yeah, there is that. But anyway, so we just have to go do the studies, demonstrate that, yeah, look, it's okay. Or we find out, or hey, we're wrong. Like, no. We probably were killing animals before, and now we're doing it again. But that's why you have to do the research. But once that's out, then somebody can say, hey, you extract your cannabinoids and terpenes out of the flowers and stuff like that. I'll take the stalks, and I'm going to go and make buildings out of it. I'm going to sell you, building blocks or 3D print your new house, or you're going to take some of those fibers and you're going to make, press it together, and I'm going to make paper. We're now going to have printed matter, and it's going to be on hemp paper, or we're going to use it to make toilet paper. So, well, that's interesting, but especially since it's strong when it's wet. I mean, hey, what? Why not? But sewage systems they want it to disaggregate. So that's going to have to be worked out. But you just keep going off in that direction. There's an excess of the material, so it's a co-product. We find that what's left over tends to be a little more worth more than what it was when we went in the first business. So I think right now one's looking at is to say, well, I can get a hold of this material. People are just burning it in their fields. So I'm saying, don't do that. Let it sit, and it's probably worth more in 2 years just sitting out in your backyard, because now it's cured and it's going to be ready for a new purpose. But somebody has to imagine that. So in fact, a lot of it has been imagined. You just have to jump in and go. So
That's really
encourage people to think about it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's gonna blossom and it's gonna boom. Being on the outside looking in, not being in the industry myself, I can just see it in the next 5 years. You know what I mean? Being ubiquitous, everywhere, buildings, and especially now with COVID, for example. I feel like hemp maybe could, in some way possible, help in this pandemic. You never know, especially in healthcare. I got one last question for you, Dr. Noller, before we let you go. I have one. Well, it's not from me. It's from a young lady. She wanted to know, has there been any research on hemp, cannabinoids, or THC in its relation to pregnant mothers, expectant mothers, and marijuana use? Could you give us any insight on that?
Yeah, so when we look at women who are pregnant, and of course infants, babies who are in utero, all those are considered special populations. And when you do research on them, it's really serious and under considerable control. And you've been able to demonstrate on others that this is okay. So when we think about the use of hemp flowers, like I'm thinking of my dad, his mom. And so this back in the late 20s, 1920s, so a long time ago, or even before that time, we see that cannabinoids were used to ensure that women didn't miscarry.
Okay.
So think about that. All right. So now it's like, okay, so if it's used to prevent people from miscarrying. So why would you say now it's a problem for having a baby if you could lose the baby if you don't take it?
Exactly.
You understand that logic? So it's just like I kind of look at it and go, so what went wrong here?
There's a lot of
So then, you know, like with anything like water, you can take too much water and you can drown, right? So we know it's safe, except if it's used excessively. So it's the dosing amount. And we just need a lot more information on. So what's the appropriate dosing of this for, let's say, a general healthy population? Let's say it's a 25 to 45-year-old adult. And then you can kind of work your way out to the edges. But if we look at Israel, so they're probably the most advanced on this. And they say that, you know, if you're a woman, you have 5 stages of cannabis use over your entire life. Okay, but yeah, so they're thinking there's like 5 different companion plants. You have one when you're really young, one kind of, and then the next, but really useful late in life. And I see this in China. They're looking at it going, you know, we're looking investigate cannabinoids to improve life for the elderly. It's not to stone them. It's not THC. Rather, it's to improve their cognitive functions. And then we see for young children, the only approved use right now in the United States for prescription CBD is for children.
Okay.
Think about that. Who have epilepsy. And what it does is they say it calms, it does all this sort of mode of action, but it's like, no, what it's doing, it's making up for the central nervous system. If you got signal, and the signal isn't passing from one neuron to the next one because your endocannabinoid balance is off, and you put it into your body, and the balance is restored. So why just for kids with that? Why isn't this something that goes into your Fruit Loops and your other cereal in the morning? You know, it's just like, I'm sorry. Could we imagine that someday? Yeah, maybe. But if somebody's healthy, you don't have a imbalance, then you don't need it, right? But maybe we need a lot more than we can ever imagine. So
I agree.
I'm hopeful. I think it's our companion plant.
Yeah, and I've heard
for
that
our species. And actually, if we look at it, it's all mammals. And not only all mammals, but then we also need to think that actually it looks like reptiles, amphibians, birds. I mean, then you're looking at, so this is like a companion plant to life. Why don't we have more of it? And it's like, that's a really good question.
It's a great question. It makes you think, and I hope that our listeners have been picking up on the cues that Dr. Noller has given out when he's, those voice cues, because he has dropped a lot of knowledge on y'all in the past 40 minutes. I know I have learned a lot in the past 40 minutes. You know what I mean? But Dr. Noller, I want to thank you for taking your time out and coming on our podcast and dropping that knowledge and giving some insights, because I believe that a lot of people, you know, they're not going to do their own research. And I think having the credibility of having you on here and listening to someone that has been doing this and has been traveling around the world and has seen these different types of usages and everything, I think it's going to be a lot of people that listen to this and they're going to think a little bit deeper. You know what I mean? But Dr. Noller, I want to thank you again from the PopOwt podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your day.
Of course.
Yes, sir. And I'm sure we'll be back in contact with you. Yes, sir. We can't wait.
We're on a trajectory to learn a lot of new things.
Exactly. And this is going to be your own subject. It's Poddin Hemp with Dr. Noller. Everybody already going to know what's up. They're going to be expecting Dr. Noller to come on. Yeah, and when y'all going to have the professor back, man?
We're letting everybody know right now that there is going to be a part 2 to Poddin Hemp.
Yes.
Okay. Right now, We just germinated. So
Yep.
we're about to get
Absolutely.
the vegetation stage in a second.
We're gonna get
And
all
then
of
we're gonna flow.
it. But thank you, Dr. Noller. You have been a
Okay.
blessing.
Yeah, that's
Thank you
great.
for popping out with us and let you enjoy your evening. And we'll talk to you
Okay.
later.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thanks so
All
much,
right.
Dr. Noller,
All
DJ
right.
Sumo,
Yeah. God bless you.
podcast.
Boom. Peace out.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yes, sir.